"I'm sorry, but employees are not permitted inside this lounge. Please wait outside." The words struck Captain Maya Thompson like a slap. She stood there, momentarily frozen, right in front of the airline's private crew lounge. Her uniform was immaculate, crisply ironed, with her gleaming pilot wings pinned proudly to her chest. And yet none of that mattered. The airline staff member at the reception desk hadn't even bothered to glance at them. He hadn't seen her rank, her title, or her years of experience. He had only seen one thing, her skin. Maya had experienced moments like this before. Not this exact situation, but the same cold, silent sting of being doubted, dismissed, and underestimated. It had happened back in flight school, where her presence was constantly questioned, where people assumed she was training to be a flight attendant instead of the one actually learning to fly the planes. It had happened on the tarmac when passengers looked her up and down with disbelief as she stepped out of the cockpit. The message was always the same: you don't belong here. But today was different. Today Maya had power. Today, she wasn't just a young woman chasing an impossible dream. She was living it. And she had the chance to change everything. From the time she was a little girl in a small Alabama town, Maya had dreamed of the skies. She would lie on the grass for hours, watching planes streak across the heavens, leaving trails of white behind them, imagining herself sitting in the cockpit, gripping the controls. But dreams like that, they weren't meant for black girls. At least that's what people told her. Teachers, neighbors, even her high school counselor had tried to steer her toward something more realistic. Something easier. Something where she wouldn't have to fight so hard just to be seen. But Maya had never been the type to back down. She worked 2 jobs to scrape together enough money for flight lessons. She endured the exhausting, relentless training that pushed her to her limits. She fought tooth and nail for every single opportunity in an industry where women, especially black women, were almost non-existent. She faced rejection, skepticism, and outright discrimination, but she never let it break her. And after years of resilience, after proving herself time and time again, she had finally made it. Maya was now one of the few black female captains in the commercial airline industry. And yet here she was, standing outside a lounge meant for pilots, her lounge, being told to wait like she was a stranger in her own profession. Taking a slow, measured breath, Maya forced herself to stay composed. Raising her chin slightly, she spoke with quiet authority. "I am an employee," she said firmly. "I am Captain Maya Thompson. I have a flight scheduled in 2 hours." For the first time, the receptionist hesitated. His eyes flicked from her face to her badge, then down to her pristine uniform, as if seeing it for the first time. But instead of offering an apology, his response was cold, clipped. "Well, captains usually check in at the main office. This area is reserved for crew members." Maya's jaw tightened. It was an excuse, a flimsy one. She had just watched several other pilots, white men dressed in the same uniform, walk past her into the lounge without a second glance from the staff. No questions, no obstacles, just quiet acceptance. Before she could say another word, another airline employee approached, a supervisor. But instead of resolving the situation, he made it worse. "Look, ma'am, we have policies. If you're causing a disturbance, we'll have to call security." Disturbance. Maya hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't made a scene. She had simply asked to be treated the same as every other pilot who had walked through those doors. And yet, they were threatening to remove her as if she were the problem. That was it. Final straw. Maya didn't argue. She didn't beg for recognition or plead for respect. Instead, she pulled out her phone and dialed a number. Direct line. "Hello, Mr. Reynolds. This is Captain Thompson. I need you to come to the lounge immediately." Minutes later, the CEO of the airline, Richard Reynolds, walked into the room. His sharp, observant eyes swept across the space, taking in the tension, the hushed silence. He saw Maya standing tall in her uniform. He saw the 2 employees looking uneasy. And he saw the other crew members, now watching closely, sensing that something big was about to happen. The moment the receptionist and supervisor recognized him, their entire demeanor shifted. Their confidence faltered. "Mr. Reynolds, sir, this was just a misunderstanding." Reynolds held up a hand, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "No, it wasn't." Silence. Then he turned to Maya, his expression serious but respectful. "Captain Thompson, I want to personally apologize for this completely unacceptable behavior." Maya nodded, but she said nothing. She wanted to hear what came next. The employees paled, realizing they had made a mistake far bigger than they could have imagined. What they didn't know, what they had never even considered, was that Maya wasn't just another pilot. She was a major figure in the airline's diversity initiative. She worked directly with the CEO to create opportunities for underrepresented pilots. And she had the influence to enact real, lasting change. Reynolds didn't hesitate. "You're both suspended. Effective immediately. This company does not tolerate discrimination against our passengers or our staff." The words landed hard. And then, turning to Maya, he continued, "We're shutting this location down for immediate training and reform. This will never happen again." Maya exhaled. This wasn't about punishing individuals. It was about changing the system. And today she had done exactly that. Word of what had happened spread faster than wildfire. A passenger who had overheard the entire exchange had recorded it and posted the video online. Within hours, the clip had gone viral, racking up millions of views. People everywhere rallied behind Maya, praising her strength, her resilience, her refusal to back down. Young black girls flooded her inbox with messages, saying that they had never believed they could be pilots, until now. Airlines across the country took notice, announcing stronger diversity and inclusion policies, vowing to create an industry that looked different from the one Maya had fought so hard to break into. Because that day, Maya hadn't just stood up for herself. She had stood up for every single person who had ever been told they didn't belong.